Hi, guys. What you're looking at here is a brilliantly disguised to hide the personal identifying information result of a failed Arizona emissions test. As you see, the result for HC, CO, and NOx is failed. Fine. When I took the car in, I knew it was 50-50. I've been having trouble getting it to pass. I've already replaced things like the fuel pressure regulator, which was bad, the EGR, which was bad. In fact, this NOx reading was actually 5.99 before I fixed the EGR and got it replaced. Unfortunately, my CO's gone up a little bit, and my HC has stayed the same. The reasons for that, I know what they are. It's looking like I've got both a bad catalytic converter because it actually has a rattle to it at 1500 RPM. You hear it. And I also have an overfueling condition, which is causing the high HC and CO and ultimately still affecting the NOx to knock it out of the acceptable range. So I probably have a leaking fuel injector or possibly a stuck check valve in the fuel pump, but that's just the specifics of the car. The real information that I want to pass along here is that you see these numbers from the Arizona emission test here. These are the only numbers I have. You can go online and pick up your test results on any car you buy all the way back to 2002 in this state. That's very nice and helpful. The problem is you have no idea where these numbers were coming from when the vehicle was tested. You don't know if this is an average. You don't know if this was taken at certain RPM. You have no idea. You have no diagnostic information to work off of other than this, one of these failed. That's all you know. I'll tell you why Arizona does that. Because the way Arizona emissions inspections are set up, it's a freaking racket. You go in, for my car, it's a $20 test to sit and put it on a roller. The guys who have newer cars, 96 or newer, all they have to do is plug the car in to the computer diagnostic port. For some of you know that as the ALDL, but they just plug into the port, and in about 30 seconds they're done. If there's no codes, they're done. Basically, your car tells on you if it's 96 or newer, so they don't have to put it on rollers. They still pay $20, but my car's 20 years old, so I pay the money. I get the test. If I fail the test, I get one free retest. Now I'm going to have to go back a third time when I fix a couple other things on this, which, like I said, probably going to have to replace a fuel injector and just buckle down and get myself and accept the fact that I'm going to have to buy a catalytic converter. But I'm going to go in and have to pay $20 again. The problem is, I have a clue as to what's going on. I'm pretty good at automotives. I have rebuilt a number of cars. I keep my cars running. Very rarely does anybody put their hands on my cars, mostly because you can't trust anybody anymore. There's very few people I'd trust, and even them I watch. That said, this information is useless. It is bloody useless. This standard, what is this standard? Is this an average? Is this over time? What is this standard? You look at any state's emission standards, and they'll tell you, most of them will tell you what that should be at what certain RPM or what it is at the test. This is nothing. This is useless. This is useless information. It's not telling you anything except that you failed at some point, somewhere along the test, and it's about a 10-minute long test on a roller dyno with the car running. At some point, these numbers went out of spec, but you don't know which. That is valuable diagnostic information you're being denied, and other states provide that. You check any of the forums on any of the automotive sites that have any kind of activity with emissions, and you'll see people giving you numbers at, oh, well, at this RPM it was this, at this it was that, at that speed it was this. Arizona doesn't do that. Arizona denies you this because it's a freaking racket. They're basically in cahoots with emissions testing, certified emissions testing stations, or not testing, certified repair stations. So they can basically have you waltz the car in there and have some stooge with a 5 gas analyzer stick his probe up your tailpipe for $500 and look at the pretty graphs and not tell you anything and then starts flinging parts at it. You have a right to know if you're going to be held to a standard. You have a right to know how that standard's being enforced. And nowhere on this can you see where or how you failed, and you don't have the information to make a real decision. This is designed for people to be taken advantage of by going into these emissions repair stations, which always crop up around these damn testing facilities. It's fish in a barrel for these guys, especially people who don't know what the fuck they're doing with a car. Excuse me. But it's fish in a barrel for these guys. So you look at these numbers, you go, "Oh God, I failed. What must I do?" And then before you know it, you're on the hook for $500 to $1,000 for BS, for $200 worth of parts and about an hour's worth of labor. It's a freaking racket. And I'll tell you something, how Arizona does with cars and emissions and DMV and the whole 10 yards. Oh yeah, they've got servicearizona.org, which lets you do just about anything with the state on a website. Whoopee. You know what it also does? It also hides information from you. These people can't even keep your voter registration up to date, even if you vote in every election, including primaries. And that's in Service Arizona as well. And you know what's not in Service Arizona? Where these numbers came from. You know, it's a real racket. In this state, if you have a brand new car, something that's newer than 2000, right now it's newer than 2011, they're basically newer than 5 years old. They're not going to require you to test. But you know what? The state still makes its money because registration in the state, the cost of it is based on the vehicle's value. There are people paying anywhere from $300 to $800 a year for registration of a vehicle. So what if you're like me and you got a 20-year-old car and your tags are like, $15 by this time, because it gradually goes down over time. Slowly, I should add. Well, then they get you with this. They're not going to get me $500 on the registration, they're going to get me $500 on repairs by denying me information. This information is not available to you. You cannot get this. Excuse me. So, you know, Arizona, that's what I think of you. I happen to live in the state of Arizona. Now, in Arizona, of course, if you have a car that's newer than 1966, it's subject to emission testing, and they have a pretty much rolling exemption for anything that's 5 years old or newer. And after that point, you have to get it tested too. But, you know, anything built after 1996 pretty much is OBD2 test. They just basically plug it into a scanner and test for codes, and you're done. But this is from my 1995 Pontiac Firebird Formula. And this is the inspection result for the second retest, and it failed its second retest. In my state, when you fail a test, they give you this piece of paper, which I have folded here to deftly hide my personal identity and information. But you can see here that I've failed pretty badly, and I pretty much know what this problem is. You see my hydrocarbons here, 1.57, and the standard's 0.8. CO 15.57, standards 12, and NOx 4.56, and the standards 2. So, of course, we see that the result is, of course, fail. Fine. That kind of ruined my day, but then again, I kind of thought it might happen. The car is 20 years old. You know, it's had okay maintenance, but it's got over 166,000 miles on it. So things are going to start happening that are going to be really annoying, and there's not a hell of a lot I could do about it right now. One of these readings, the oxides of nitrogen, actually went down. That reading initial testing was 5.99 initially. That was fixed by basically replacing my EGR. Unfortunately, my CO originally was 13.77. You see the standard 12 there. Now it's 15.57, and my HC has basically stayed the same. Here's the reason. I'm pretty darn sure. I changed not only the EGR, but the fuel pressure regulator and the PCV valve. Also did an oil change. I ran combustion chamber cleaner through the carb and running the proper grade of fuel, which for a Firebird formula in 1995, it got a 10.5-to-1 compression motor. That's stock right out of the factory. So yeah, you're going to be, they recommend you use premium, and you're going to be using premium to inhibit knock, because you've already got an engine that's halfway to a diesel as it is. But that said, it's not so much that I failed, and I knew it was a 50-50 chance. I also know that this vehicle has a catalytic converter that's at best questionable. It actually has a rattle to it at 1,500 RPM. So I have been denied a critical bit of diagnostic information, and do you know why? 2 reasons. So they can keep me coming back to pay their emission testing fee. That's one thing. Which, if you fail, the first retest is free, then you have to pay again, then that retest. It's a kind of a leapfrog. And to Arizona's credit, they've dropped the price of the emission testing from $27.50 to $20 flat. But that doesn't matter, because it's a freaking racket. The fact that you can find nothing but these numbers, which God knows where they came from. I mean, for all I know, this number right here happened at idle, and this one right here happened at the 70-mile-an-hour curve on the dyno. That tells me nothing. All it's giving me are blank numbers. That said, the fact that I don't have the information means that I either have to go out on my own, which most people couldn't afford and wouldn't know what to do with anyway, but buy my own scan tool to plug into the vehicle to actually read what all the sensors are doing in real time to see exactly, like, say, is the O2 sensor reading wrong? Do I have a rich or a lean condition showing up at certain RPMs? I can't tell that without a scan tool. In scan tools, you can get anything from a handheld one with a screen for about $300 up to thousands for software, depending on what you need. That in this car is weird because it's not what's called an OBD2, it's OBD1. OBD1 doesn't have as deep a command set or a diagnostic set as OBD2. On the flip side, it also has a lot fewer emissions components, so that's a good thing in that respect.